Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the City of Muskegon City Commission meeting for November 9th, 2021. Before we begin the proceedings, I'd like to welcome our new pastor, Ryan Plants at Evanston Avenue Baptist Church, who will lead us in prayer. And that would be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. So anyone who would like to join us in prayer, please do. And anyone that would like to join us in the pledge, please do as well. Pastor?
Let's pray. God in heaven, we ask your blessing on the individuals here who have been called to lead this city in which we live. Thank you for their hard work and their sacrifice. May you continually bless them. May you generously give to each of them wisdom, discernment in their hearts to skillfully govern the citizens in our city. Jesus, would you graciously remind those of us who have the privilege of leading within our community that the most effective way we can lead is to follow your example. Lead others by serving others. And would you graciously remind us that our chief responsibility is to serve the common good of all, beginning with those in greatest need. In Spirit of God, would you grant them and us the wisdom and courage to know and do what is right and good and true. May they and we speak out when it is time to speak out and listen patiently and receptively when it is time to listen. Would you give our mayor, our city commissioners, the staff and leaders, wisdom so that they may solve problems this evening, distinguish between right and wrong, and bring order, stability, and prosperity to our community. May we be guided by you, God in heaven, the one who perfectly embodies both justice and mercy. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor. May we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner German,
Present.
Commissioner Ritzema,
Here.
Commissioner Emery,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Mayor Garland,
Here.
Vice Mayor Hood,
Here.
Commissioner Ramsey,
Here.
all here.
Thank you kindly. That brings us to public comment on any agenda items. Members of the public are welcome to come forward and share any comment they wish on any one of the agenda items at this point. Each individual is asked to give their name, their address, and is given 3 minutes for comment. We do not deliberate or debate at this time, but your comments on any one of the agenda items will be taken into consideration for any potential discussion by the commission. So at this time, I do have some individuals that have submitted forms, but that does not preclude anybody else from coming up and speaking, okay? Mr. William Sinninger.
I would like to want me to go to the podium?
Yes, sir.
My name is
William Sinninger. I have an office located here in the city of Muskegon. I came tonight to express my support for staff recommendation in terms of amending the code or the form-based code as far as it relates to Laketon.
That's new business item A, okay?
Yes. I'm not going to take a long time because I know there are other people that are probably going to be more detailed, but I do believe that this is a matter that probably was maybe an oversight or it just got more of an oversight in terms of when form-based code was in play and some other modifications that took place to it to begin with. As I read through staff recommendations on it and support, indicated that that's what they were doing was try to create a more level playing field for all of the people that had businesses and locations in, in the Laketon area. It seems to me like this is one of those things that just gives everybody an equal opportunity to do what they need or how to maximize their properties. And so I would throw my support to staff's recommendation and ask that you pass the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sinninger. Mr. Andy Crow.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mayor-elect, Commissioner, and staff.
I'm Randy Crow, and for almost 30 years I've invested in 1756, 1768, and 1794 Lakeshore Drive, as well as property on Park Street and on Henry Street in the city of Muskegon. My companies and I have invested thousands of dollars in these properties, and we've been a key employer and business owner in the city of Muskegon for decades. I'm a strong supporter of this area and the neighborhood. I'm a supporter of growth and opportunity for our entire community. When I bought these properties, they were zoned B2 commercial and waterfront marine. As recently as last year, our zoning planning director dealt with me as if my property was zoned B2. In reliance on that, I moved my business and placed the property for sale. But after I moved the business and put the building for sale, I was informed it's now in the Lakeside form base, which limits the potential uses and therefore buyers. I lost my first potential buyer because I was told the property were not in the commercial zone because they were changed to Lakeside form-based code, a more restrictive designation. Unbeknownst to myself and even to the city staff, Lakeside commercial properties, including mine, were left out of the marijuana overlay district because of this. I'm asking that this commission follow the staff recommendations here and do the right thing and put Lakeshore Drive on the same level playing field as all other approved zoning areas for cannabis in the city of Muskegon. In fact, 1700 Lakeshore Drive, my neighboring building that touches my waterfront property, has had a cannabis business in Lakeshore on Lakeside for 6 years. This has caused no issue that I'm aware of. Therefore, this change will be consistent with what is already in place for one, but not all properties in that area. I presently have a qualified inquiry on my Lakeshore Drive building. It comes together, including by this approval. If it comes together, the buyer would bring a professional, experienced operator that knows what they're doing to our area and help revitalize it. The buyer is already licensed in the state of Michigan. They have other viable locations in California and other states. Their operations and facilities have been described as an Apple Store look and feel. They have also invested heavily in the communities that they are in. They will buy homes here, open other businesses, contribute to the community in many positive ways, and invest thousands in updates to now a vacant building on Lakeshore Drive. I support the sound growth for all businesses along Lakeshore Drive and in our city. While we may not all agree on likes or dislikes of businesses, types, or categories, it's growth in our city and our community. I support the Muskegon Zoning Department staff recommendations here and request that this commission support the same. This would finally correct my Lakeshore Drive building and others on Lakeshore Drive in the correct B2 commercial zone, not only for these opportunities, but other opportunities down the road. Michigan voters approve this industry, and it's growing in every community all over the state. It's a viable, regulated by the state, city, and it's legal. Lakeshore Drive should not be exempt from a level playing field, and your yes vote will correct this once and for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crowe. Don Passenger.
Good evening. My name is Don Passenger. I've actually been working with Mr. Crow for a period of time.
Can we get an address, sir?
Sure. I'm at 23 Ionia on my form, Suite 230 in Grand Rapids. I've been working with Mr. Crow for a period of time regarding his business operations. He decided with COVID and sort of downsizing of on-site work staff that he had to consolidate operations. He relied upon some discussion. Muskegon is within the overlay except this one. So this would put these owners on par. These folks have invested thousands upon thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars into their properties. This will also promote tourism, given the location that it is and near your car ferry. folks will come from out of state and benefit from this. In this case, he has an inquiry from a quality operator. If you let the market dictate by making this change, then good operators will be successful, and some of your fly-by-night and sketchy operators will essentially go away. If you listen carefully to the pastor, he prayed for your wisdom and discernment, and by having same, you would result in prosperity for the city of Muskegon. In this case, this is something that would assist with the prosperity of Muskegon, including those folks who have already invested substantially in your city, have paid taxes, have payrolls. Thank you. I'm all set, and I appreciate your reminder, and I thank you all for your time tonight. I ask that you support the staff recommendation in this case, and that you vote to support the staff in that regard. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Steve Crow?
Hi, my name is Steve Crow, 1756 Lakeshore Drive, Muskegon, Michigan. I'm a member of Rand's Properties. I'm here to support Item A, the amendment to the Lakeside Form-Based Code. Ask the Commission to approve as to the correct oversight when zoning was changed. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that would like to address any of the items on the agenda?
Michael Howeisen, 903 Turner Avenue, Muskegon, Michigan. Good evening, Mayor and staff and commissioners. I'm going to speak to you on item F of the agenda.
Okay.
As I'm sitting here reading this, I understand that prices of everything have gone up because I see it every day at my works, where I do work. So I do understand it to that point, but didn't this company put in a bid to deliver this product at this price? And if they did that, did you not sign a contract with them for that price? I would encourage you to try to do your very best to get them to hold at that price. And if they need an increase on the next contract, then you can negotiate it then. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that would like to address? Sir?
My name is Dick Gezzi. I'm at 2017 Lakeshore Drive. I'm not sure how I'm quite against this, but if you were to turn the zoning into, I don't even know what you call it, a grow, is that for the whole lakeside area? Is that what you guys would do? Is that what we're at? Is that what they're asking to do? That's what I'm getting out of it. Not just Randy's building, but the whole lakeside area. And if in that so, I own a couple of kind of ugly buildings in Lakeside that could probably be turned into that. They wouldn't look like an Apple store because I think an Apple store is mostly glass, and I didn't think for growing you wanted a lot of glass. I thought you wanted just plain pole barn looking buildings. What else do you need? The ones I look at, most of them don't have any windows. So no, I'm not really for it because I think, you know, that's probably the biggest, nicest thoroughfare from there to Pier Marquette Beach. Most of the marinas are along that road. I just think we have a lot more potential to keep it, you know, businesses, I guess, and not what you're talking about. So I think it's just a retail corridor, a nice walking district, and I thought that's what Lakeside was all about. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Please.
Sorry, I've never done this. I am supposed to state my name and
Your
address.
name and address.
Okay, my name is Leila Vassar. My address is 1857 Kinsey. I'm in the Nims neighborhood. I really wasn't going to say anything until, I'm sorry, this gentleman said something against it, because that's not what I'm here for. But as we all know, a lot of my generation, I'm sure yours, have, you know, somebody that smokes weed. And so what I've noticed with a grow and these grow ops and cannabis, like, you know, machine or shops or whatever you call them, I don't know, I don't really smoke weed, but when I do, a lot of the stuff on the street it could be laced, it could be a hybrid, which if you see somebody and they look really high, a lot of the time that's because they got a hybrid off the street. So these operations, I'm so bad at public speaking, I'm shaking. But a lot of these operations, because I can smoke a pen from there, I can smoke a dab or something like that, to be honest. I'm sorry, you guys, I don't know how formal this is, but I can do it, and like it calms my anxiety like I do when I do get it. And so I don't like what I do like. I do like that there's grow operations because there is a more safer means for people that are going to smoke. And I think allowing all businesses or all areas to have that means of revenue, that goes to your city, that goes to your state, I think that is very fair. And I think that's what we're really supposed to consider, is the fairness and equality throughout our entire city and our entire state and businesses alike. So some people might be against it. I know there's drug gun wars, there's all these ideas against it, but I don't think they're very true. And what my experience and my friends' experience is that it's very safe. And that is all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak on any one of the agenda items this evening before we start our business? If not, thank you for your input. And that brings us to our consent agenda. Commissioners, you have received the consent agenda and have had an opportunity to review the items. Are there any items you wish to have removed for further discussion? Commissioner Ramsey?
Item D.
Item D as a solid waste ordinance amendment. Any other commissioner comments?
Yes, item C.
Okay. Any other items, commissioners? If not, Commissioner Lindsay.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented minus items C and D.
Support. Then moved by Commissioner Masavinga, supported by the Vice Mayor, to approve the consent agenda as presented minus item C and item D. Any discussion on the other items? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Masavinga,
Yes.
Commissioner Emery,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Mayor Gowron,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hood,
Yes.
Commissioner Ramsey,
Yes.
Commissioner German.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item C, Commissioner Ramsey.
He was D.
Item
Oh, I'm
C.
sorry. I'm sorry.
That's
Item
Commissioner
C,
Sherman.
Commissioner German.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor.
Sorry about that.
No problem. Yes, I move to approve the wage and benefit program as detailed for non-union pay and benefits.
Support.
It has been moved by Commissioner German, seconded by Commissioner Frinsma Savinga to approve the wage and benefits program as detailed. Commissioner German?
Yes, I guess it's that city manager that would give this report and just enlighten us what's going on.
Sure. So most of this is pretty standard. It's probably been in line with things that we've done in years past. One thing that I want to point out is last year, because of some unknowns, we did not grant a wage adjustment. We had some one-time payments, but no wage adjustments. This year we have CPI somewhere between 3% and 4%, depending on where you look. And so what we're recommending is a 2% wage adjustment, an increase in the residency incentive, and a 0.5% lump sum payment for non-unions. The item number 4 on here would apply to all staff, and it's essentially an incentive, a 1% lump sum incentive to encourage employees to complete their vaccinations. I think we've heard at least some reasonably positive feedback from employees that some of them that haven't would, and so we think that this is a good incentive to, aside from the potential of having mandates and things like that. This might get us to where we need to be, where we can feel more comfortable at work, especially in the public works department. We've had quite a few people off on furlough or on what do you want to call it, when they can't come into work because they've been exposed, quite a few, and it's really impacting the functions, especially in like the highway department. And we're coming into the time of the year where if we had 6 people quarantined, you will notice it if it's snowing. We won't have the people to get the work done. And so we think that this might help us get a few more people vaccinated, because by and large, the folks that are missing work because of COVID and COVID symptoms are the vast majority of them are unvaccinated.
Okay, and the employee residency incentives, people just living in the
Yeah.
neighborhood, right?
Yep. So it's we used to require all employees to live in the city. A law changed in the 1990s that took away our ability to do that. A few years ago, we started slowly increasing. It started at 1%, it went to 2%, went to 3%. Essentially, a pay premium if you live in the city, with the intention of incentivizing folks to come back and live in the community and get involved in the community. And so this is continuing the growth of that incentive.
And just one more question about that, because 4.5% to 6%. How do you determine which, I guess, employee would, how they would
Everybody will get the same.
Oh, everyone's the same.
Yeah, it's growing. It's currently at 4.5%. It'll grow to 6%.
Okay, great. Gotcha. Okay.
For everybody, and the intention, again, this is one of those where in most of the union contracts it says they have access to it as long as non-unions do. So this is one of them that would, as we raise this, it will raise for police, fire, public works, and clerical units.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I think this is fair. And,
And one other thing too, I want to point out, because probably you're not going to call Ken up and ask him the question, but I'll put it out there. One way that the reason why we're comfortable with this lump sum payment without asking for a budget amendment, as you know, we moved away from a pension system a number of years ago, and what we have is a defined contribution, but everybody has a 5-year vesting period. So sometimes people might leave after 2 years, or they might leave after 3 years or 4 years, and every time that happens, an account is populated with our contributions into their 401k that were not vested. And that fund right now has about $200,000 sitting in it. And we think that that's the easiest way for us to cover these expenses, keep it in the payroll system, and not have to make a budget amendment to cover the costs. So the timing is pretty good.
all right. Thank you.
Any other questions on this item, Commissioners? Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Manager, for this. I think this is a good compensation package and adjustment, reflecting, our desires for our employees to work within this, or live in the city of Muskegon, as well as work for us and with us, and also encouraging our employees to get vaccinated for the health of themselves and the general public, and it also acknowledges that inflation is existing and reflecting that, and hopefully that higher inflation is transitory, not persistent. But if it is persistent, I think we will need to potentially increase it further so that our employees' purchasing power does not weaken, or they become harmed by the fact that inflation is exceeding wage growth. But overall, I think this is a very good program. So thank you.
Very good. Anything else, Commissioners?
Just to be clear, the vaccination just for COVID-19.
Yeah. Not chickenpox or anything like that. Just
want to make sure.
Yeah.
It probably should be written somewhere, but
yeah. To clarify, it is for COVID-19.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Emery?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
yes.
Mayor Gowron?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hood?
Yes.
Commissioner Ramsey?
Yes.
Commissioner German?
Yes.
Commissioner Rinsma-Sibiga?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item D. This one is Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I motion to amend and adopt Chapter 70, Article 2, Section 31A of the Code of Ordinances for Solid Waste.
Support.
It's been moved by Commissioner Ramsey and supported by Commissioner Rinsma-Sibiga to amend and adopt Chapter 70, Article 2, Section 31A of the Code of Ordinance for Solid Waste. Go ahead, Commissioner Ramsey.
This is an easy one, Deputy Director. I spent some time last week with the Muskegon Area Renters Association, and they had a couple of questions about the new solid waste ordinance, and they were hoping that we could reach out to them as a city office and do some conversating with them about some experiences that they're having with fines that they're already receiving and such for some of their tenants. Not that I'm demonizing renters, because I'm not. That they might need some help with. So this looks great. thank you for that. And if you could reach out to them, I would greatly appreciate that. So would they. And if you need any help with connection, let me know and I will send you that information.
Perfect. No, I will happily do so.
Thank you.
Anything else on this item, commissioners? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Mayor Gowron?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hood?
Yes.
Commissioner Ramsey?
Yes.
Commissioner German?
Yes.
Commissioner Rinsey-Muskegon?
Yes.
Commissioner Emery?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. New business, item A, so get this read out, please.
Staff initiate a request to amend the Lakeshore Form-Based Code to allow caregivers, micro-businesses, designated consumption establishments, Class A recreational grows, Class B recreational grows, Class A medical grows, and temporary marijuana events as a special use permitted in the lakeside commercial and lakeside heavy commercial context areas. Staff recommendation. Just a second. To approve the request to amend the Lakeshore Form-Based Code to allow caregivers, micro-businesses, designated consumption establishments, Class A recreational grows, Class B recreational grows, Class A medical grows, and temporary marijuana events as a special use permitted in the lakeside commercial and lakeside heavy commercial context areas.
Thank you. I get a motion, Commissioner Ramsey.
I motion to approve the request to amend the Lakeside Form-Based Code to allow caregivers, microbusinesses, designated consumption establishments, Class A recreational grows, Class B recreational grows, take a breath, Class A medical grows, and temporary marijuana events as a special use permitted in lakeside commercial and lakeside heavy commercial context areas.
Support.
It's been moved by Commissioner Ramsey, supported by the Vice Mayor, to approve the request to amend the Lakeside Form-Based Code to allow caregivers, micro-businesses, and the designated consumption establishments as outlined in the Lakeside Commercial and Lakeside Heavy Commercial context area. Good evening, Mr. Francis.
Good evening. So we talked about this at a previous work session. This is really just to kind of rectify an oversight by staff when we were doing the rezonings. When we rezoned a form-based code, we did not realize at the time that there was a caregiver in that area, so we did not put that into the available allowed uses into the form-based code. Shortly after that, the commission asked us to help get more local people involved in the marijuana industry. They were getting priced out of the overlay district, so we decided to allow these smaller intensive uses basically everywhere in the B2, B4, medical care, and the industrial zones, which takes up a lot of parcels in the city. So with the issuance of a special use permit, you could do that. Had Lakeside not been rezoned, then they would have enjoyed those same rights. And we do have a couple local people that are in the industry that are trying to get into one of these license types. So we really think this is the right thing to do, just to make up for a past error that we made.
Questions for Mr. Franzik? Commissioner German?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I heard something about business owner. Who's the business owner for the building? One of the businesses that the gentleman sold. Is there a business owner present? They're operating at this point in time? That's my question.
There's a building owner.
I mean, building owner.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Is that person present, or would he like to?
We have one of them present. He spoke earlier.
Okay.
We also have another person who thinks he can get here by 6:30. Looks like we have a representative for Greg, Mr. Adams, who's
okay. I'd like to hear from him also. And it keeps saying oversight, so this is something that, due to the zoning staff, actually overlooked.
It's something we would have recommended at the time had we known that there was a caregiver going on. So it's just something that didn't get put into the code because we thought it wasn't there in the first place. And then also, since it had been rezoned and we further allowed these uses all throughout the city, this one got excluded from it. So.
Any other questions for Michael?
Just quick. So this is similar along the lines of what we approved earlier. that it would make them eligible to apply for a special use permit.
Yes, and it doesn't mean you would get it. You have to take into consideration whatever is in the regulations for the special use permit. Does it fit in with the neighborhood? Is it going to cause problems with traffic, odor, any type of things like that? Which a special use permit could get revoked if they don't meet all those thresholds. So it's not guaranteed that you get it at the site. There's a lot of things still to consider. It just gives you the option to apply. In fact, there's one that's going to the Planning Commission tomorrow that staff's recommending disapproving because it's in all of our industrial parks. It's not something that staff's always going to be willing to approve.
Yeah, so I think it's just good for people to be aware. We're not talking about similar to the overlay zone that's on Laketon Avenue near Seaway Drive. This is a different idea.
Yes.
Commissioner Ramsey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Michael, thank you for standing up here tonight. I want to start by thanking this young lady right here for getting up and speaking for the first time. You did a great job. We encourage you to do it every other Tuesday for as long as you need to. Thank you for being here tonight. Secondly, Michael, there are two things that I want to talk about, and you mentioning the one that you guys are about to not recommend, I think is a great segue for me. I want us to really begin to think about, as a city, the oversaturation of cannabis businesses within our limits. At some point, it's too much. You can only smoke so much pot, and I, unfortunately or fortunately, don't know what that limit is. But I'm greatly concerned about it. And a lot of these businesses are in my ward, which is great. My ward was lacking in a lot of business until this happened. So I'm very excited about it. I support cannabis across the board. Tax it, buy the kids' books. But I think that there's something that we need to begin to speak about and realize that when there's too much, there is too much. And so how do we begin to mitigate that? And then secondly, I want to speak to what Mr. Gezzi said and speak about Lakeside really being a retail corridor. And again, when I reference Laketon Avenue, we didn't have a lot of that. We don't have retail space that stretches Laketon Avenue that was all replaced by windowless grow facilities. But in Lakeside, it is very different. And it's more of that downtown feel in that little corridor. And so I just want us to be aware of when we're bringing these things up and talking about these businesses that everyone should have the opportunity to have whatever kind of business they want as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. However, when we're placing these businesses in spaces that have a build out or a feel or a vibe, look at me, a vibe, that we are respectful of that in that neighborhood or in that business corridor. And so while I will vote yes for this because I support cannabis, I want us to begin to think about, as a city, oversaturation and how a windowless grow operation can affect the feel of a retail corridor. And that's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Emery.
I agree with Commissioner Ramsey. The oversaturation I'm very concerned about. But I, being the Lakeside commissioner, I've talked to a lot of the neighbors and a lot of the business people. It is not wanted there. And I know that we do have a medical marijuana caregiver there. And I applaud him because we never smell any odors from his building. And he takes very good care of it. And what I would like to do is I would give him, because he's done such a great job, let him expand to maybe micro, if that's possible, rather than rezone the whole Lakeside business district.
Well, it is only in 2 context areas. There's 4 context areas in the district, and we're only proposing it for 2. We believe many of the ones located, the 37 parcels that are affected, many of them are way too small to be able to grow enough plants to do anything with these buildings. So, when staff wrote this, we really felt like maybe there's only 4 or 5 parcels in the whole district that this is really going to be an option for, just because of the size requirements you need to grow and process on site.
And there's how many? 37?
37 that would be affected, but most of those are, the small zero lot line ones that just don't have enough space.
And only 5 of them would be of size. That's
roughly about 5 or so, yeah.
Quite a lot of business buildings in Lakeside. We don't have, we're only 5 blocks long. So That's a lot. And, you know, listening to my neighbors and the business owners, other than the couple that spoke here, I would be voting no on it, although I would vote yes on allowing Mr. Adams to expand his business in that building. I've been getting a lot of complaints about we have some caregiver grow operations on Laketon Avenue that the smell is stinking out the whole neighborhood several times a year. And yeah, it only lasts 3 or 4 days, but that's 3 or 4 days that these people can't stand to be outside. So I don't want ever, and nobody wants to see that happen in Lakeside. Nor do I want people getting off, visitors that are coming in on the ferry, getting off and arriving to such odors. So I will be voting no for this.
Any other commissioners that would like to speak on it? Commissioner German.
Yes, if I could hear from Mr. Adams, representative, if he can come up and just tell us about his business and the operations.
Yeah,
Well-
can we just get your name and address? And
My name's Adam Nook. I guess it's for 1700 Lakeshore Drive.
Okay.
Okay, you're a representative for Mr. Adams. And,
Yeah, I guess so. He asked me to come here and
okay.
listen to what you guys had to say. But
Well, thank you for coming. And I'd just like to know how long he's been in business and what type of operation is it?
so at the moment, it's just like a caregiver grow. So you like 50 some odd plants, and it's like there would be plans to be like a micro business if possible, you know. But a caregiver isn't really like a business. Perhaps you can only like deal with your patients. You know, you're limited to those 5 or 6 people.
But if amended and rezoned, you would be able to expand.
Yeah, you'd be able to expand and sell to anybody over 21 with the micro business.
Okay. And what license are you requiring?
Honestly, like we haven't gotten that far. It would most likely be the micro business, but there's like the smaller grows too, like that you wouldn't be able to sell it like as like a storefront, you know, with the Class A or the.
Okay.
That would just be like growing it, and then you'd be able to sell to dispensaries.
All right, thank you.
thank you. Commissioners, any other observations or questions for staff? Good. Commissioner Johnson?
Happy to allow the manager to jump in if he wants to add something.
I was just going to point out that it's still the zone itself underlying is still form-based code. So some of the concerns about windowless buildings and stuff like that, those would still be mitigated by the traditional form-based code stuff. So the same requirements that a normal retail store versus one of these would have in opening their building, number of doors, transparent glass, all those sorts of things will remain intact here. So they wouldn't be able to take, like, for example, the old the old movie theater and close up all the windows and turn it into a grow operation and it would still have to meet the requirements of form-based code. This is just more use-based, than form-based.
And again, this wouldn't become by right. It would be have to have an application for special use.
Correct.
Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Manager, for sharing that, highlighting some of the pros or the benefits of the form-based code in and of itself in that regard. Commissioner Emery spoke to odor control, and yes, I've heard the same thing with regard to Laketon. And I think that we maybe need to, I don't know to what extent, Mr. Franzik, you've had contact with that particular operator or others with regard to odor control. I know it's in our ordinance that there's supposed to be odor control, and I'm wondering perhaps some of the pushback or reticence of further expansion of these operations in our city is because there are some problem sites where we're having these odor issues, and perhaps we need to be making a little bit extra effort to follow up with them and make sure they're adhering
with our ordinance. Just throwing that out there, and maybe you already have some dialogue or engagement with this particular problem place that Commissioner Emery was referencing on LinkedIn.
We in the past have received calls about different areas, and they're almost always alleviated when we contact them and tell them to change their filter.
Okay.
The one on Laketon is news to me. I know that there are some there. We haven't gotten any odor complaints in a long time. The last one, we got one last year on Henry Street, and we were able to resolve that one. So please let us know. It really is that simple oftentimes, and something I've come to learn from dealing with this industry is usually that happens when the filter is overdue, and it's also during a processing time. So it's not an everyday occurrence. It usually only happens when they're harvesting. So we've really been able to cut down the amount of complaints that we've received. So yeah, these ones are news to me, but if we can get a location on those, we can certainly follow up with them.
I think, if correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner Emery, I think you're referring to the
I
one
will
near
do that.
Henry and
I'll do
Laketon.
that, yeah.
That area, because I know I drove by there recently, and it was overpowering. Windows up and everything, like it was rather overpowering and noxious. So
Henry at the Hill.
Yeah.
I'm sure people living close by are not thrilled. Well, maybe some people love that, but others may not be so thrilled by that a factory offense.
And I wonder if Mike could do one more clarification, maybe the difference between maybe the enforcement abilities or likely enforcement abilities of one of these licensed under the MML, FLNA, like we're talking about now, versus a caregiver, and maybe talk about the types. I mean,
so yeah, when it's dealing with the state and not the caregivers, those are way more heavily regulated. They've got to pass state inspections. I haven't gotten a complaint on anybody. We have some very large grows in our overlay district through the recreation legislation. And I was kind of worried when these first started opening because we were getting complaints from the small caregivers, but they do it in such a way and way more professionally done when it's registered through the state that we haven't seen an issue yet. And my hope would be that these ones as well, other than the caregiver, are regulated through the state. Your odor control steps, they have to be way more formalized than they do with the caregivers.
Yeah, indeed. One of those large grows you're talking about, MJ Verdon, and I checked them out, and state of the art. They put a lot of money and thought and care into their operations, and kudos to them for that. But another piece that I think kind of dovetails with what the manager was saying, at least with the special land use permitting process too, if there are problems and they can't be resolved, one solution is revocation of the permit. So that gives a little bit more of a, I suppose, stick if need be, because a resolution could not be identified otherwise. Speaking to Commissioner Ramsey's concern about oversaturation, it's always I feel you, and I've been hearing that from some residents about when's enough. Do we already have so many of these? And it's a tough call in a free market economy. Where do we government dictate what the limitations are? Now, the state residents did indicate that they want us and state government and all of us to regulate cannabis like alcohol and tobacco. And the state does limit where alcohol can be sold. So there could be a rationale for limiting the number of facilities. We don't do that presently in our ordinance or as a policy. We created a district, and that geographic district had a built-in limit on how many could fit in and accommodate there. Now we're adding them here and there, but it's mostly through the special land use permit process, which gives some kind of control to the planning commission to indicate where they may go and could be revoked. So maybe not right now. There's a whole lot to unpack or work through right now. But to address Commissioner Ramsey's concerns, maybe, next year we look at a different program as we approach it, just exploring and have that discussion, because what he raises is legitimate, and I've been hearing it from other residents. Also, I personally would like us to, honor the residents of Michigan who've said regulate like
tobacco and alcohol and treat it no differently. And so in doing so, we would be using underlying land use like we do any other business operation, but we don't create these special carve outs. We say, hey, this type of zoning is appropriate for this activity and land use, and it's a use by right. You don't have to jump through a bunch of hoops and so on. And so that's something that we could explore where it's appropriate citywide rather than these districts or creating the special land use permit. So it's something for us to, I think, as a body to explore further and have those dialogue and conversations with our residents and business owners and property owners. But in terms of this question right here before us, I do take to heart the particular plight of Mr. Adams, a caregiver who's been operating there without incident, it sounds like, and inadvertently has been denied opportunity, an oversight that was a governmental oversight, being denied an opportunity to pursue a micro business. And so I think that was an inadvertent wrong that we have an opportunity to right at this time. I wonder, as part of the special use land use permitting process, could they, and I don't know if this is a question for legal counsel, the city manager, or our planning manager, but could the planning commission decide if someone wants to apply for a Class A recreational grow or a Class B recreational grow or Class A medical grow, could the planning commission say that's contingent upon you having retail space as well, street fronting retail space, so that we are not deviating from, just as we heard from business owners and others, they'd like to retain that retail corridor or aspect of the Lakeshore Business District. Could that be a possible condition for one of those grows over there? Is you have to have retail, street facing retail as well?
And that's what the form-based code basically dictates. Our attorney has a different feel, but I mean, there's already regulations in there about having, for certain mixed-use buildings, having to have active uses on the first floor. You don't see how this is different.
Okay.
Depending on the type of building you have.
That's what I wanted to understand, because otherwise I'm like, should we remove those grow designations to better ensure that it is retail oriented? But it sounds like your position is there still needs to be retail oriented within that form-based code.
It depends on the building type. That, like Mr. Adams' building, I would consider that a flex building. You don't necessarily have to have retail in a flex building. It's already there. So I'm not sure if we were gonna make somebody. It's more about what the building is built as. Like if you were building a building, yes, you should build a retail space. Whether or not you're gonna rent it out or just use the back for growing is a different story, I suppose. Maybe something else we could explore is, we're proposing this in two context areas, lakeside commercial and lakeside heavy commercial. Nobody really has asked for this in the heavy commercial. I would not be opposed to taking those out. We're really talking about Mr. Crow's property and Mr. Adams' property, and that's where the lakeside commercial is mostly located.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Francis. Unless anyone has any additional insights, I will yield the floor. Thank you.
Commissioner Ramsey?
My only concern with that, Michael, is that at some point will that become an oversight, and then we'll be here again having this conversation. And I just wanted to kind of follow up with Commissioner Johnson, and not that he said or did anything wrong, but I will say again that I support cannabis business, but I am very aware of the oversaturation in my ward, and I am terrified that in 10 years or 15 years, when it's not the booming industry that it is now, I'm going to go back to a bunch of empty buildings that I had in the first place. And so I just want to make sure that we're addressing that before it happens. But otherwise, I support cannabis business. So if we're going to do anything, let's do it and make it what it is, so that we don't have another oversight. We don't have to have this conversation again. We don't need to touch everything twice. But again, thank you for your work.
Thanks. And I agree. That's why I put the lakeside heavy commercial in.
Yep.
It seems just like the other ones. So
support.
Any other comments or observations at this time before we go to vote?
Just one other thing. Yeah. Given the fact now, possibility of let's see, the class. Which class would be the heavy micro grow, where they can have multiple plants? Say, is it what, up to 500 plants? Which license is that, Mr. Francis?
So there's the Class A rec and Class A medical. I think those are the two 500 plants.
Okay.
But you can already have a caregiver group up with multiple caregivers and have over 500 plants.
Of multiple caregivers in a building.
There's some caregivers in the city that already have, pushing that 500 threshold. So,
okay.
It's not anything that's really out of the ordinary. Kind of where we set the limit at, because kind of what caregivers are already operating around.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And a micro, to answer your question, a micro business can only grow up to 150.
Okay.
I think there's legislation being presented now to maybe bump that up to 300.
Yeah. And just listening to Commissioner Ramsey, and when he mentioned the saturation of a lot of these facilities in the city, I hear that as well. And I am open to, equitable, opportunities, to business owners. And I do actually know Mr. Adams. He's actually one of the first ones that brought this type of business to my attention. I didn't know anything about it, so he basically educated me on a lot of this stuff.
He helped us write our ordinance back in 2008. Yeah. He was very helpful.
Okay, and I guess just the smell that also Commissioner Emery talked about, and the control of the odor, and looking at how Lakeside, is being developed, with the redistricting and the old Sappy site that they wanted to actually develop down there. We got rid of the old Sappy plant, tore that down. So I guess looking at what are the residents saying? Are you hearing anything about a business like this coming down there on the waterfront down there? I mean, is there any negative feedback?
I shared the comment.
So, how do we do the mailing? How is that determined?
300 feet from any of the affected
where
properties.
Where do you get the addresses from?
Our GIS system.
Oh, because I know neighbors that got the letters that live out by the country club, and I'm closer than they are, and I never got any letters. So I just wondered where we pull those addresses from. So that's
it wouldn't have been 300 feet from the entire Lakeside district. It would have been 300 feet from any of the affected parcels. So you might not be within that, while the other ones were, even though they seem farther away.
No. Yeah, I'm right up the hill from them. So I would be closer than the person that got the letter. Anyway, yeah, I think that was all.
Okay. Just Commissioner Johnson.
I was just going to, just to clarify so I can show you, see that whereas before, that is now Lakeside Heavy Commercial, right off of Denmark. So that I don't know where the person you're referring to lives, but maybe they are closer. Just wanted to, on the other side? Near the country. Okay. So yeah. I don't know how many feet that is, but just wanted to show you where the edge is.
Right. I'm right there.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. The person that got it is way out there.
Gotcha. Okay.
Commissioner German?
Yes. Just one more question for Mr. Francis. Okay, now, so if this amendment was to pass, this would allow just how many buildings? Just those, did I hear you correctly, with 2 buildings?
There's 37 affected parcels.
Right.
But you need a very large building to pull off this type of use. Many of the caregivers have shared the opinion that between 4,000 and 5,000 square feet at a minimum. So really there's only about 4 parcels in the whole affected area that even meet that criteria. So I don't think we're going to get a lot of applications for this.
Right.
We've opened this up throughout the rest of the city, and I think we have our second application tomorrow. So it's been all this time, and it's really not causing people to go out and, because they can do it throughout the whole city. It's not just in Lakeside. It's
right. Okay. Thanks.
Really just kind of leveling the playing field.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Anything else, commissioners? Vote, please.
Mayor Garland,
No.
Vice Mayor Hood,
Yes.
Commissioner Ramsey,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Muskegon,
Yes.
Commissioner Emery,
No.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. That brings us to any other business. Commissioners, is there any other business you would like to bring before the body at this time? I see a red pen going up, Commissioner Ramsey.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to remind staff that we are still waiting for an update on the progress at the watermark and their build out. So if I missed that, I'm so sorry. If someone could just email it to me. Otherwise, if at our next meeting we could have an update from Moses and his team, that would be great. Not from Moses, but about Moses and his efforts there.
Okay. Good. Commissioner Principal Saving.
Sure. So,
I'm sorry, did you have Vice Mayor?
I thought you said no. Yeah, this is just a business item about the reappointment process. So that is underway. I think we made one update at a CRC meeting ago that was going to be getting going with staff looking at whose terms are expiring and sending out letters to people who need to reapply if they would continue to serve in their appointment. So we don't have any business related to this, but we are going to be holding some sort of recruitment. We haven't decided exactly yet before the end of the year, but open house or some sort of virtual way to try and advertise the openings that we do have, and that hopefully we'll get that in process so that can be presented to the commission in January. So we always encourage people to apply through the talent bank process to serve on a city board or committee.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Commissioners, anything here before we go to public comment? Commissioner Johnson.
I just want to say thank you, Commissioner Ritzman-Stevens, for your leadership of our Community Relations Committee and your excellent work as chair of the CRC. So thank you for ongoing good work with the CRC.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Top notch efforts. At this time, then, we'll go to public comment. Any member of the public that would like to address any issue at this point can come to the podium. We need your name and address, and you have 3 minutes of comment. And if you'd like to go.
Hi, again, my name is Leah LaVasser, and my address is 1857 Kinsey. When I was 21, almost 22, I traveled a lot. I worked on farms, and I visited a lot of cities, and one of the cities I stayed in was Asheville, North Carolina, and I stayed there for about 4 years, and I loved it. I visited Austin, Texas, and New Orleans, and a lot of big cities, and I played music, and I bussed and farmed. One of the greatest things that I took from traveling is what I could do better for my city and how my city could better serve the community. One of the issues that I feel has constantly I shouldn't, that's dramatic, but we've constantly had an issue with is I know that the terminal system, the transit system, has had its ups and downs, it's cut hours, it's had problems funding. One of the things when I was in Asheville, I didn't have a car. I mean, I just, I got there by other means, but I used the transit system, and that's a great the transit system is also great for college students. It's also great for helping your employment rate, people that are getting to jobs, but our transit system is very unstable, I mean like its history, its ups and downs, but also because you don't know if it's going to be early and you don't know if it's running late. What I would like to propose and be considered is bus tracking. It's a bus tracker. There's one like iRide, and there's also Smart Bus. And what it does is that there's a tracker on the bus. It knows the route it's going to take, and then the bus stop has a number that you text. Asheville, North Carolina. It was called. You would text Art to or Art, 32. That would be the bus to a certain number, and it would text you back the time that it was going to be arriving, especially people that live next to a bus stop and they expect to, use it every day. You can text it, and it helps if people are out in the rain, the cold. That's going to help your employment rate. That's going to help people that are visiting the city, get around, because a lot of people fly in, and they take Uber or something, but they really want to experience the city. And so I would just like to propose that a bus tracking system be considered for the future, in the future of our commissioning for the city, because I absolutely loved it, and I think it would be great for our city. Thank you.
We'll pass that along. Be mindful too. Do feel, even though again we don't typically engage in, discussion or debate, but we'll pass that information along. But I would encourage you also to give the Muskegon Area Transit System a call. It's actually overseen by the county.
I didn't. I talked to them about it, and then I called this number, and then I never got a call back, and then so I'm trying to check all my boxes.
Okay. But I would encourage your persistence in doing this.
Okay, thank you so much.
You betcha, and thank you. That sounds very, very enlightening. Is there anyone else that would like? I know that we have Michael Howeisen, and then. Did I see hands start going up over here as well? Michael?
I'm just going to be polite and let everybody else go. So let's bring this to an end with a happy note. For many years and many moons, I've been up here discussing with you about our police and fire department and needing to be improved, and with that new truck sitting out there tonight and the new pumper that's coming, thank you all. Because in my mind, it's under the constitutional oath that you took to protect your citizens, and it's finally getting done. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Are there any other members of the public that would like to address the commission? If not, Vice Mayor, take us home.
Nice truck. And if there's nothing else, I move to adjourn.
Support. It's been moved by the Vice Mayor and supported by everybody up here, starting with Commissioner Ramsey, I think. All in favor? Aye. Any in opposition? Good night, all.